Imagine a castle built on sand. It looks strong and tough at first, a symbol of standing tall. That's how Russia's economy seemed when the Ukraine war started, ignoring sanctions, pushing back against isolation, and even running hot as war spending poured energy into a $2 trillion giant. Vladimir Putin, always planning, saw GDP grow 4.1% in 2023 and 2024. Unemployment dropped to a record low of 2.3%, and the ruble jumped 43% since early 2025. The world was shocked, experts were puzzled. But look closer and the cracks are huge. What started as a story of strength is now a warning of stretching too far, where the Kremlin's focus on weapons over everyday needs is breaking down regular life. Welcome to the fall of Russia's war economy miracle, where the cost of endless fighting is hitting hard, and the question isn't if the castle falls, but how big the crash will be. Let's start with the numbers that made people believe the hype. Sanctions hit hard since February 2022, with bans on exports, frozen assets, and tech restrictions meant to crush Russia's economy. But the GDP only shrank 1.4% that year, way less than the 8% disaster Russia's central bank feared. Help from countries like China and India kept oil sales going, with trade reaching $518 billion in 2024, and high commodity prices hid the damage. Russia's coal industry used to rely on equipment from Europe, the US, and Japan. Sanctions cut that off, and hopes turned to Chinese replacements. Now in 2025, the truth hurts. Chinese equipment often isn't good enough, and orders take years, leaving mines stuck and production dropping. Exports to the EU, once half of Russia's sales, were banned in 2022, hitting hard with lost suppliers, funding, and buyers. A slow squeeze. As Bloomberg's analyst Alex Kochorov says, the war, sanctions, worker shortages, lower oil prices, a stronger ruble, and high interest rates are hitting hard. That's why factory output fell in March-April 2025 before a weak recovery in May. It's not growing, it's struggling to breathe.
Oil is the backbone of Putin's war effort, but it's showing cracks. Russia used to send oil to Asia, ignoring G7 price limits. Now the EU has set a new rule, a changing price cap at $47.06 per barrel, 15% below the average over the last 10 weeks, updated every 6 months. This cut Russia's oil income by 14% in early 2025, with export prices at $59 when they planned for $69.07. If oil stays at $60, it hurts. If it drops to $40 to $45 for months, Russia's budget collapses, selling oil with almost no profit. But big oil producers like OPEC Plus in the US won't lower prices. Why? Politics beats kindness. Cheap Russian oil keeps markets steady for others, propping up the same system sanctions try to weaken. This isn't a mistake, it's strategy. Economy Minister Reshetnikov warned last month, we're close to a recession. Inflation down to 9.2% in July 2025 isn't the enemy anymore, it's a sign of trouble, as the central bank cuts rates from 20% to 18%, trying to boost growth instead of controlling prices. The ruble's value jumped 43% this year, which sounds good but makes exports less competitive, cutting oil money more and pushing the budget gap to 3.4 trillion rubles, 37 billion euros, by May, nearly the whole year's target. Military spending drives this shaky economy but comes at a cost. Putin celebrated the 5th new nuclear submarine this week, part of a 6-year buildup, while car sales in June dropped 30%, showing a clear choice of weapons over everyday needs. Defense costs rose 21% in early 2025, paying contracts early and widening the budget gap, but the war industry, once a bright spot, is stalling. Benefits for regular people? Almost none. As Sofia Donets, a top economist at T Investments, says, only a few industries are growing, all tied to government and defense orders. Other sectors? A mess. Construction slows as the housing market weakens. Steel demand falls 10% this year, according to Severstal's boss, Alexander Shevelev, with exports hit hard by the strong ruble. A key manufacturing index hit 47.5 in June, showing shrinking production, orders, and jobs. The country's savings fund? Down 71% from before the war, to 30.5 billion euros, barely enough to cover the budget gap. Putin's dream, like old Russian leaders Peter the Great or Catherine II, puts glory above people's lives. But as analysts warns, with all focus on Ukraine, regular people's economy will just keep getting worse. Banking, Once a quiet strength, now sounds alarms. Big banks like Sberbank worry about bad loans, much worse than official numbers show, and talk about needing government help if things don't improve. Sberbank's boss, Herman Greff, said last month that loan quality is falling, with businesses struggling to pay debts. Central bank head Elvira Nabiulina calls these fears not true, but her actions, cutting rates, show worry. Before the 2022 war, coal companies got loans and bonds from Europe. Now that's gone, leaving them stuck with unclear local funding. Asset grabs? They've tripled in value over the past year, scaring business leaders who see a wave of government takeovers in meetings with Putin, like Argentina's moves, but with Russia's twist, giving wealth to loyal friends while investments dry up. The lack of workers is making things worse, with many people drafted into the war or leaving the country. Unemployment is low at 2.3%, but that hides the problem. Millions are gone, either fighting or fleeing, and companies raise wages to get workers, which pushes prices up. Before the war, Russia sold many different things abroad. Now, oil and gas make up 30% of its budget, easily hurt by global oil deals or sneaky shipping tricks to dodge limits. China plays it smart, buying cheap Russian oil and sending basic goods, but avoids sharing high-tech stuff because of sanctions risks. India buys too, keeping things afloat, but dodging sanctions gets pricier with every trick, from new shipping routes to secret imports. Russia's economy hasn't collapsed yet. The IMF predicts sluggish growth of 0.9% in 2025 and 1% in 2026, but this is stagnation dressed up as stability, a system worn out by war spending and no fresh ideas. Putin faces a choice: keep pouring everything into the war or open up to change. He's always leaned toward fighting, with the Kremlin obsessed with Ukraine, ignoring idle coal mines or crumbling retail. Economy Minister Reshetnikov warns of a recession just around the corner, and Russia's economy is like a fortress built on sand, eroding slowly under deficits, debts, and lost hope. The West learns a lesson. Sanctions take time, but they hit hard. For Putin, it's a risky bet. Can his legacy outlive his bank account? In Russia's faltering economy, the answer seems clear: not likely. And now we want to show you Putin's famous palace, his desire to be an emperor in all its glory.